So I've been a subscriber to Bible Gateway for a while, and recently I received an email saying that if you subscribe to the Bible Gateway Plus, you can have the interlinear version. And I don't know what interlinear is, so I have Ron here today to kind of walk me through and explain what interlinear is. I was excited to see the Greek version of the Bible. I was like, oh gosh, I don't have to have tons of books and it's all here on one page. With a click of button, I can have many different things come on, not just reading the Bible in English, but also get back to my Chinese roots. So read it in Chinese, which I'm not very good at, but it helped me see the word in a totally new light. But because I was also interested to know what is it in Greek, and since I do not know Greek, I want to learn a little bit more. So I thought we have this video right now.
I think a lot of people that I've encountered think that the Greek is completely inaccessible to them. And so a lot of people just read the Bible in whatever language they speak fluently that they were raised with, and think that, well, Greek is just for the scholars or the experts. So I think it's commendable that you want to get to the Greek, and there actually are tools that allow that average reader to do that. So I guess who this is for anyone who's reading the Bible, and maybe you've come to a point where you are wondering to yourself, I wonder why it's translated this way, or why do different versions or translations that I've compared translate it differently? What's the underlying word behind that? And one tool that can help you with that is called a interlinear. So
I thought I was really proud. I was really proud of myself when I found that feature. I was like, oh, it's all Greek. But very quickly, I found like, man, I need a scholar to help me understand it because I couldn't understand a lick of it. So I'm going to use X7 as an example.
Okay.
All right. So to walk us through, I found the interlinear Greek version here. See this little wheel here? You click on the page options. You go to the very bottom. It says interlinear. I still do not know why that word is being used, but voila, you have all that Greek version. Let me just magnify it. Look, it's English and then that's Greek all. So one of the first things, at first when I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I get to read the Bible in its original form. But the immediate thing I came up against was, oh my goodness, why? Oh, they made a mistake. I was about to call Bible Gateway up and say, guys, you made a typo mistake. Why are these words repeating? But as I study it, I realized there are several things. Look how they all keep repeating, doxa, doxa. And I realized I need a little bit of help. Are these charges true? But in Greek, it says ako hutos, hutos, hutos. I don't know. And I realized very quickly, even though I may be able to read Greek, I don't understand Greek. And what is the value of having this reverse interlinear version turned on? How can I, a layperson, get benefit of it? And I thought maybe you could share some insights and help me further along in my own Bible reading.
Sure.
Okay.
So
the mouse.
The first thing I would say, this word interlinear, there's no big mystery behind that. Basically, it was saying, let me take that off. There we go. An interlinear means that you've got your translation that you're reading, in this case, English, and then right under the line or between the lines, interlinear literally means between the lines, you've got another translation, basically the base that it's translated from. In this case, it's the Greek. So in interlinear, you can have any two languages where instead of side by side, it's one on top of the other.
Oh, okay.
Between the lines.
So for Bible Gateway, what they chose to do is the second line is actually the original language. So if I pull up Old Testament, right, I think probably I would have Hebrew. Is that correct? I mean, we could do a quick check and just go to maybe Isaiah.
Yes.
Isaiah 7. Can you pull that up and just kind of like change that to Isaiah 7? Let's go down.
Let's just go to Genesis.
Okay, great.
Let's go to
Genesis.
Let's do that. And let's just go to Genesis 1.
Okay. And let's see if it's all Hebrew. Oh my gosh, it's all in Hebrew. Is that Hebrew? Is that right? Yes. And then you got to click twice here and then the whole thing will magnify. Yeah. No, twice. No, at the bottom. Yeah. Just tap. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So it's New International Version. This is a reverse interlinear. Reverse means that they're taking you back into it. And in this case, the language that they're using in this, Hebrew, they're not actually writing it in Hebrew. They're using English letters or Latin letters to represent the Hebrew.
Oh, it sounds like Hebrew.
If you know how to read the Hebrew, like in this case, Reshith, Elohim, bara, Shemayim. But a lot of people wouldn't know that this S, which with the wedge on top, is a sh sound. But that's where this is.
So you have to be a scholar, but kind of like you just kind of read Hebrew. So I'm going to read the first two lines of English, and then you read the first two lines of Hebrew. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Hebrew? So the Hebrew, they left out something actually here. So it's Bereshith, bara, Elohim, et hashemayim wa et haaretz. So that's the original Hebrew, but you don't see that written here exactly because they tried to put the words directly underneath from the English. That's the reverse part of this. It's a reverse interlinear. So this is not a true interlinear where you would actually have it in the original version in the order that the words occur.
Oh, so we're talking, these are just key phrases.
These are key phrases. So the original would, I'll say it again slowly, Bereshith instead of Reshith. It's Bereshith, which means in the beginning. Bara, Hebrew puts the verb next. Elohim, God, is third in the Hebrew. Et hashemayim, that's the heavens. Wa et haaretz. So that's how it is in the original Hebrew. So we get pretty close. The main words are represented here. Reshith, which means beginning in Hebrew. Elohim, which is God. Bara is the verb to create. Shemayim is heavens. Eretz is heavens. So the S with a dot under it is actually like a TZ sound. Tsa, tsa, like pizza. So it's Eretz. So this lets you see what are the original words underneath the English that are being translated. That's a helpful tool because if you have different versions or different translations in English, this is NIV, but if you compare it to, let's just say, the Revised Standard Version, New Revised Standard Version, New Living Translation, you might find that the words in English are slightly different. And if you want to know why they are different, you've got to go to the underlying language, Hebrew in the Old Testament, Greek in the New Testament, in order to see what they're actually trying to translate. And then there are other tools where you can look up those original languages.
They didn't do that for the NLTs. They didn't pull up the Hebrew version here. So oopsie.
Because you have to go to reverse interlinear. Oh, so they don't have a reverse interlinear for the NLT.
No, they don't.
Okay.
So I'm back to NIV again. But I didn't mean to take you to Hebrew. It was interesting. Can I just go back to
sure, we can go back to Acts 7.
Acts 7 again. That's where, because I can't deal with Hebrew now. I can deal with Greek because which is already quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
All right.
So in this,
go. So like this, like Hutus, like what I.
So again, this is a reverse interlinear. So we're not showing it in the exact order that the words would occur in the Greek. We're showing it in the English order.
And then the key phrases, like that's the way it stumps me, because if it's key phrases, like, so you have Akirus.
Yes. So we've got archierus is the Greek word for high priest. And so since we have two words in English, high and priest, they're going to put archierus under both of those.
Oh, so high priest is one word. Archierus is one word.
It's one word in Hebrew, got it. In the Greek.
So are these charges true? So it's basically Hutos alone can basically is the translation for these charges true.
Well, and this is part of the challenge or one of the difficulties about translating from one language to another, because in the Greek it says echo hutos, which if you want to translate it very literally, it would be, I have these. So when the high priest asked Stephen, he basically said in Greek, echo hutos, I have these. And the implication is he's saying to Stephen, I have these charges against you, but all he actually said on that day was, I have these. Maybe he was holding up a bill, with charges detailed in it, or maybe he was pointing at witnesses who had just given testimony against Stephen. He said, I have these. And
so it's the people who translated these works basically, since we don't have the visual of what happened, so they can say, are these true? But you're right, he could be holding something.
So this is one of those examples where we can see what is actually said in the Greek. If we want to be very literal about it, it actually would not make sense to people. If we put that in English, if we said, then the high priest asked Stephen, I have these. And I think 99 out of 100 readers, maybe 100 out of 100 readers would be saying, what? What you have these what? It doesn't make sense. And so the translators have to make something intelligible of what he's saying. And so they've translated, are these charges true? What the high priest is putting before Stephen, he's asking him basically, are these charges against you true? But he says, I have these. That's what and then the next line, the verse 2, it says, to this he replied, and this is again Stephen who's replying to the high priest, and he says, ho femi. All right, so the one said is what it would literally be. Brothers and fathers, aner adelphos kai pater. Okay, so this is interesting because we just have one word in English, brothers, but the underlying, it's saying that it's two words in Greek, which is aner is the generic word for man. So aner means man. We have another version of that word in Greek called andros. Aner, andros, and we say andros. Where have I heard that word before? Andros. Well, it's the word that we get from anthropology, right? So anthro is the word for man, and aner, anthro is the base. So this is the generic word for man, brother, men, brothers and fathers, basically is what Stephen said. And so that doesn't make good English, so we just translated brothers and fathers.
So how does knowing Greek and studying the Bible in the Greek language help you draw closer to God? I mean, why did you take that up? Because I'm like, man, brothers, okay, so I mean, I'll be better served just to know it as brothers. Why do I need to know it in Greek?
First of all, I would say that just knowing the original language by itself, just simply, doesn't automatically draw you closer to God. I've met a number of people in college or university.
I like to draw closer to God, so I think maybe I should read Greek.
Sure, but I've met plenty of people who study the language, know the language, but they're not any closer to God. In fact, maybe they're farther away because it can actually make you feel proud of yourself that I know the original language and therefore I have this inside knowledge, right?
I really want to draw closer to God. And I thought, all right. So it was like, but it was perplexing because I really tried to read it. I was like, the God of glory. And I know you tried to teach me Greek, like, when we were dating 30 years ago. I was like, I was your failed student.
More than once, a couple of times.
I know. But now finally I'm inching. I'm like, I like to learn it, but it's like, I'm again, like ho theos, doxa. I'm like, okay, how does just sitting, parking myself here, meditating on doxa help me draw closer to God? I'm like, I don't get it.
Doesn't necessarily draw you closer to God.
Yes, which
by
you
itself.
mentioned. Yeah.
But in this case, I think most people, if you just point out something to them like theos is the Greek word for God. And so it makes sense when you say theology, the word theology is the study of God. Just like biology is the study of living things. Well, the Greek word for living is biology, right? Study of living things. Theology, study of God things, right? So you see theos right there, the God of glory. So doxa is the Greek word for glory. if you've been in, a church more than one Sunday, you probably sang a doxology, which is
Yeah.
a song of
Which
praise
the
to
study of glory?
God's glory. No, well, a doxology is ology is literally from the Greek word for word, right? So logos. So the logos, or the doxology, is a word of glory. It's a word of praising God's glory. Theology, theos, logos, is the words about God.
So in other words,
The study of God.
doxology is, to put it in,
It's a hymn of praise to God's glory.
okay,
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Right? So it's
Yes.
a doxology is a word of praise to God's glory.
Okay.
Right? So, but
It's a very big word.
seeing
Yeah.
doxa there just lets us understand that, okay, in the original, it's just one word. It's ho theos doxa, the God of glory.
Mm.
In English, we break it into two words because of the preposition. We need that.
What does that mean back in those days, when if people read this word theos of glory, back in those times, if we were to transport ourselves back then, and they see these words appear, what do you think what conjures up for them?
We have to realize that so much of what we read in the Bible, and especially the New Testament, assumes a background in the Old Testament. And so when people say, in this case, like the God of glory, well, that assumes an Old Testament background. So when did God show his glory to his people? Well, he showed his glory on Mount Sinai, right? With the thunder and the clouds, the lightning, the fire, all of that, when he appeared to Moses and to the people of Israel. So when Stephen talks about the God of glory, and he's actually speaking in Jerusalem to a bunch of Jews, to his fellow brothers and fathers, he is taking them back to the roots of our faith. And the rest of his message here in Acts 7 is very much rooted in saying, look, what I believe in is not some new teaching. It actually goes way, way back to the roots of our faith. What Jesus has done when he came, and what he's taught and what he showed us, is totally a fulfillment of what we have learned from young, and what takes us back centuries and centuries into the roots of our faith.
So you have studied the Bible. Next question is then, so this is obviously to the Jews. So to the non-Jews, the Gentiles, would these disciples also use theos doxa, or will you use something else?
So there's some commonality. There's some places in the New Testament where the audience being addressed is not a Jewish audience, although most of the time it is people who have,
I think 9 or 10 Cornelius.
Yeah.
Which fact I can't remember.
It's a Jewish audience, and so they have a lot of deep background behind it, and we need to keep that in mind. But there are times when the ones speaking are actually addressing a pagan audience or a non-Jewish audience. I'm thinking about Acts 17, when Paul is standing in Athens on Mars Hill, right underneath the shadow of the Acropolis, where the Parthenon, sits, the temple to Athena. And he addresses the Athenians and says, men, I see that you are a very religious people, because as I walked around your city, I actually came across a statue, and it said, to the unknown God. Now, this God that you worship as unknown, I'm going to declare to you today. And so Paul is clearly tailoring his remarks to a pagan audience that has no Jewish background. And so he's going to speak in terms of their pagan ideas about God. That's where he's coming from.
So where is that? We're in 17 right now, the unknown God. What verse would that be?
Let's back up.
Back up. Sorry, I'll let you have the mouse.
So let's go. Let's see. Let's go back up. up here, Paul is in Thessalonica, which is northern Greece. Saloniki is the city today. It's a major city in Greece. And he didn't get a good welcome there. And so he eventually moved his way south and ended up in Athens, which is a little further down here. And so we're going to keep going down until he's in Berea. I'm going to keep going. Sorry, I'm just trying to get us all the way down. In verse 16, so Acts 17, verse 16, in Athens, Paul's waiting for them, Timothy and his traveling companions. And while he's there,
Yes, God-fearing Sebo, Sebo. I don't see doxa.
no, he doesn't
So-
use doxa because he doesn't talk about the God of glory.
Yes,
And
because
so,
look, if you scroll down, God's with a small g is demonos.
well, he's the first thing he does. So it's interesting because he's in Athens. Athens is a city full of temples. It's full of these idols or statues to the Greek gods, whether it's to Zeus or Athena or to Ares and Hephaestus. There's all these temples there. And so he's going to speak to a polytheistic, audience and appeal to them saying, look, there is a God that you worship as unknown, but I'm going to tell you he is a known God. And that is the God of the universe that the Jews actually worshipped. But he's going to speak about God in those terms.
Agnostos.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Agnostos theos, an unknown God. So an agnostic is a person who basically says, I don't know. I don't know about God. I don't know about these religious things. So Paul speaks to the Athenians in those very terms, saying, I'm going to speak to you about an agnostos theos, an unknown God.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So for me,
Yeah.
getting to the underlying
Yeah.
language, in this case, Greek, helps us to really get a deeper appreciation for what is trying to be said in the original. And for the translators who have difficult jobs is to bring that meaning across into languages that we speak and understand today, because English wasn't around back 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. And so they have to bridge that divide between, where they were and where we are today. And same thing you've got on the screen here, like Chinese, 1/5 of the world's population is Chinese. And to understand these things that happened in the Middle East, 2,000-3,000 years ago, and to translate it into the idiom of people in East Asia is another sort of challenge for translators.
Yeah, I've got a new appreciation of how they translate it because there's several versions of it, and some of it I was like, wow. Oh, there's another maybe YouTube tutorial.
Another,
yeah, but so let's stick with this because I go, many directions sometimes.
We were talking about an interlinear, though.
So my question is, like, for example, like, I realize that I tend to bite more than I can chew, so that's why and I get overwhelmed. Yes. So like, for instance, like Amy, and I mean that I was like, there's more to Greek than I can just kind of like decipher on my own. So my big question is, because you're not always available to help, and I don't want to study this on my own. My big question is then, what tips can you give me that I could be further along? Because I've got this tool here and I really like to know what it is versus like seeing patterns and, breaking it down like a linguist. So, which is, like you said, doesn't make me draw closer to God, except like to be able to just analyze another language. So what do you think? What do you suggest I can do now that I have this little extra, gift to read the word? So this is something that I've learned from Ron so far. Using this wheel, we go to Reverse Interlinear. The Greek version pops up. And one of the things I learned from Ron is that these are not exactly the second sentence, the down below with all these dashes and all that, are not exactly the exact sentence as one would say it or in the Greek language. What the interlinear version does is that it picks out key phrases in Greek or what the essence of that chapter is. Is that correct, Ron?
There is a tool called an interlinear where it actually gives the Greek or the Hebrew in the original order, and so it's like the full language. This is a reverse interlinear, so it abandons the original order of the underlying Greek and puts it in the English order.
Oh, that's why it's called reverse interlinear. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I learned. And then the second thing I learned in our conversation is knowing the Greek language, studying the Bible in its original Greek language does not draw me even deeper and closer to God. I mean, it's not like a direct one, even though that could be an effect of it.
It's not a shortcut or like, oh, I'm going to take a shortcut here. It's like, this is going to get me right there in the throne room of God, and I'm going to be right there with him. No, not necessarily. It can be, but it's not a guaranteed thing.
Yes, exactly. Because, I realized that too. And so the third thing I took away from in our conversation is that I would like I realize there are patterns that I'm seeing that alone I do not know how to decipher. So that's why I'll have you come in here and explain a little bit, so what is the value of reading the Bible in the Greek language? And if I want to continue doing this on my own, what are the tips that you can suggest? For instance, when I look at while he was still, I see Amy. Okay. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, so I get, turned off. But yet there's some value in trying to read it and in Greek language. Like I found there's a lot of value in reading it in Chinese for me.
The value of having a guide or a good teacher who can take us through it and help us learn the lessons, and it's not just dry knowledge, but it's really powerful and impactful. That's really worth it. This particular word, I'll just make this quick comment. Eimi is a very common word in Greek for I am. And so like
God says I am who I am.
Eimi.
Is that how you say it?
No, you just say Amy, which is I am. So, and if you want to emphasize, because Amy by itself is I am. It's the verb, and since in Greek the verb carries personal distinctions, like Amy means I am. If I say esti, that means he is or they are. That it is. So if you say Amy by yourself, you're already saying I am. But if you want to put emphasis behind it, you would use the pronoun ego. I am. Ego eimi is like an emphasis to say, I am. And that's kind of interesting because in the Gospel of John, whenever Jesus is portrayed, when the soldiers come to the garden to arrest him and they want to arrest Jesus and say, we're here to arrest Jesus. What does Jesus say? Ego eimi. I am. And the soldiers are like taken back by it. And it's, I'm just pretty sure, I'd say 99.9% sure that John is trying to emphasize to us that Jesus is not just answering the question of the soldiers and saying, I am. He is also echoing what we learn in the Old Testament when God appears to Moses. And Moses says, what is your name? And God said, I am who I am. My name is I am. Jesus in the Gospel of John doesn't just say this once. It's repeated like 5, 6, 7 times that he repeatedly says, I am. I am the bread of life. I am the good shepherd. I am. Whenever, he puts the waves and the waters at rest and makes them still. And so knowing not just the language, but also the impact of it in the original, you don't even need the ego to say I, because Amy says I am already. But when you put the two together, you have like a very more, impactful message.
So it sounds like, when I'm teaching Chinese, and I remember there is a set of lexical items that I make sure my students go through so that they can immediately be functional in the language. So
can you quickly just, can you explain what lexical means?
Like, for example, 冲凉, bath, shower, or 苹果, apple. That's the fruit category. 火车, train, that's the transport category. 树, tree, that's the plants and trees category. So in every category, I expose my students to a set of commonly used words so that they can access and start communicating with the native speakers.
I guess we call those vocabulary words.
Yeah, sorry, lexical. Okay, like vocabulary words.
No, it's fine, because when you study another language, you have to learn this technical sort of jargon. Like I never heard of what a lexicon was until I started learning Greek in college. And what I found out was a lexicon is basically a dictionary, but it's a dictionary where you have two languages. You look it up in the original and it gives the definition in the language that you're more familiar with. That's a lexicon. And so learning these sort of technical terms is useful. And so when you use lexical, I was thinking to myself, I didn't know what that word meant before I started studying languages.
All right.
But so there's terms like vocabulary or, these sort of things that help us, understand them.
So, all right. Vocabulary. So do you have sort of like I'm sure it's sort of like a set of commonly used vocabulary words that, Greek vocabulary words, so that we can, these are the top, 500 words that are commonly used in the New Testament, that we can have an immediate understanding of what, like Emi, for instance, like the way I was talking about teaching Chinese. My goal is to first start you off with the first 500 Chinese characters, and then we work ourselves up to 2,000.
There is a really helpful thin book that you can get in a paperback called,
Google it? Go ahead.
It's by Bruce Metzger. It's called Lexical Aids type it, Lexical Aids.
Lexical
Aids for students of New Testament Greek. There you go.
Pulled up all the time.
Yeah. So this is a book you can get on Amazon by Bruce Metzger. It's very thin, but it actually lists all the words in the Greek New Testament in order of frequency or occurrence. And so you can find out what are the most common words, the words that are in the very front of this book.
All right.
And so you can learn words like Amy, which is very common at the beginning, or words like life, and faith and things like that.
I see.
Words occurring. Now you have to learn how to read
I need to know Greek.
The letters, but the nice thing is there's only 24 letters in the Greek alphabet, 2 less than in English. And about 8 or maybe 10 of them you would already recognize. They look just like English. And then the others, you've probably seen them before, but you just need to get a little crash course in it. So it's not so daunting. You can learn the Greek alphabet.
It is still daunting after 20 years.
Okay.
You tried to teach me that 30 years ago.
And so besides this book, which is a technical resource, you can also find websites where you can find, like, it's all put in English, and it's just the simple, items.
Right. So we are talking about
most common Greek words of the New Testament.
Okay.
And you can find websites that have those sort of things detailed.
All right, let's go back. That's all I have for today as far as questions. Those are my 3 takeaways, and I think I'm good. Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, that's